to get back to your question of, what makes a good CEO? Self-awareness, confidence, and I think decision-making, right? We have to make decisive decisions. We have to make them quickly. We have to figure out what's a resource group that we feel comfortable. And then once we make the decision, we're moving forward, right? We're not constantly looking back. Consistent change is very scary for an organization. So by the time you make that decision, you have to pivot at some times, but you want to be very consistent with that.
Folks, before we start this episode, if you could do one thing, would you please hit that subscribe button? It really helps us out. We'll kick those tires and start that fake fire. It is time to camp. Today we welcome the CEO of one of America's hottest companies. He set out on a mythical quest to save people from aesthetic disaster. What am I referring to? Golf clothes that don't look like a neon balloon. His name is neither Travis nor Matthew, but he is in charge of this amazing company. So please welcome to the campfire my former friend, Ryan Ellis.
Former? What's that come from?
I don't know how the interview's gonna go. I don't know if I don't know if it's gotcha questions.
Okay, let's kick it off.
Okay, first off, we're on a shorter time schedule here. Apparently, when you run like a massive brand, you have limited availability, right? We are camped outside TravisMathew headquarters right now. So for you dozens of people listening around the world, not many actionable steps you can take on that. Now, YouTube algorithmic masters, what they are. We have to normally I'd butter you up, ask how your day is, but we just got to dive into it, right? So I think the first thing I want to ask is, you've worked with some incredible athletes. I mean, you got Chris Pratt actually to work with TravisMathew.
You got Laird Hamilton, so
that's
give you
true.
Some credit.
Would you say though that are you more intimidated being around me than you are Chris Pratt?
You are very handsome.
Thank you.
And what I would say to the listeners that don't know about you is you come off in here as very smooth and sexy. You are not that in real life.
Okay.
And so I would say Chris Pratt. He's smooth and sexy in real life.
Okay, there you go. Chris Pratt. Then do you have to up his bonus for smooth and sexy? I don't know if you have an exclusive on that.
That comes with the package.
Innuendo, folks. So. Which TravisMathew is no stranger to. All right, so right off the bat, CEO, one of the most amazing companies, huge fan. For our viewers, I am adorned in the cloud gear, which is life-changing. You have such a fascinating story, and I know you get asked this a lot, but it is relevant. You started off literally at the bottom here. I mean, there was no other bottom position you could take, short of taking like water in, right? I mean, give us your snapshot of your journey to how you rise to be a CEO of this amazing golf lifestyle.
Yeah, I had been in apparel my whole career and working on the retail side and wanting to get to the wholesale side. I was able to do that. Started with TravisMathew. I was about 5 years in to apparel, and I didn't have the right experience to get the right job that I wanted. And so I was kind of willing to take any job. And so they gave me any job, which was, hey, we need someone to run sales. We need someone to run the warehouse. We need someone to put orders in the system and pick and pack it. So do everything. And I was more than happy to do that. I think, what was interesting the first year is I had enough sales experience that I sort of knew what was realistic in terms of revenue goals. The team was not realistic at all. We had 3 people that hadn't been in apparel. We had an investor who was amazing and was going to invest in the company, but we didn't know where to invest yet. And so the expectation of, hey, we should go do $1 million. Well, it's like you hired a salesperson that had never worked in golf, never been in golf. I literally picked up a PGA magazine in Southern California and made a spreadsheet out of 500 accounts and then turned that into 250 accounts that we wanted to go after. I started cold calling one after another. We sat in 4 corners in the office and everyone just laughed at me cold calling all day, to the point where I called one account, which one of the guys that started the company was Travis Johnson.
And at this point you were selling just like polos or?
I'm selling nothing.
What are you doing?
I'm just saying, we have this idea of a brand. Are you interested? Can I come meet with you, vet through what we're doing, and maybe you can help us build our first collection?
Wow.
So it was really cool because I don't think any brand had come in and said, we have an idea. Let the customer. Let's tweak it together to make it right, because there's probably some things we're missing here. And so we did that. And I remember one of my first calls, like 5th call. And it was to Virginia Country Club. And I get on the phone and, can I talk to Jamie Mulligan, who's the CEO, but also was buying.
His last name is Mulligan?
It's Mulligan, yes.
Like he had a choice.
Right. A really famous golf coach. He coaches Patrick Cantlay and a lot of our kind of elite golfers. Awesome guy at Virginia. Good friend of mine. And he wasn't at the time. I didn't know him. So I called Jamie and I said, Jamie, yeah, I'd love it. We're starting this new line. It's called TravisMathew. I want to tell you what it's about. Are you open to me meeting with you? I'll just meet with Travis. And I said, Travis who? He said, Travis Johnson. And I had Travis Johnson sitting right next to me. Can you hold one sec? Travis, I'm talking to Jamie Mulligan. Do you know him? Yeah, he's my golf coach. I said, Travis, I'm cold calling with no leads, 100 calls a day. Could you give me one call? And so that's sort of how it started. It was like, no, Ryan, figure it out. And that's kind of the person I am. I'm like, great, let's figure it out. And very entrepreneurial. I don't call myself an entrepreneur because I spend other people's money.
And I don't call you one either. So
nobody does. But I have that mindset of like, amazing. Like, you're going to let me have this open template and go figure it out. And so I did. And it wasn't without lumps. And again, the first year, I think our investor and the team went, are we doing enough volume? I think we did $350,000 only selling in Southern California with no reps, just me. Right. And no one knew what the brand was. So I don't think they realized that was actually a good starting point in success. I think we did $1 million year 2 and then $3 million year 3. And then that was really fun. Like when you're that small, good camaraderie, having a lot of fun, working 80 hours a week, but it didn't feel like it. I didn't have kids at the time and, didn't have the responsibilities other than I just want to grow my career. And then once we hit 2010, 2011, had Bubba, we knew we figured something out. And then it was like, let's go. And so we've gone through these crazy phases.
So you did something unprecedented, essentially. Instead of forcing a product onto the market and seeing if there's demand, you actually inquired if there would be any interest in your target buyer in the first place. Which I think
it was really smart because we designed the first and second line at the same time. First line was received really well. The second line, because we couldn't get that feedback, because we had for the wholesale customer, it has to move so fast, that we had evolved it to a place we thought it was going to go, and it absolutely went the opposite direction. So the second line was a bomb. We had to reset the whole thing and go, all right, let's regroup and figure out what direction we're going to go. And so we did that over a year, and it was so that feedback we got at the beginning was really critical. And then as we went to year 2 and 3, we never went without that feedback. And so we were able to do something other people couldn't do, which is not only have a creative vision for something different, but now match that with the customer's taste and maybe not meet in the middle, but meet, close as we can to the middle and go, hey, we've got the vision, but also we're going to make it sellable. How many designers design a line and the next season you go, wow, that line was so good last season, what happened? And what you see from us is just natural progression because we hold hands with our customers through the process. Now, not only our wholesale customers, but the end consumer too.
Is it an oversimplification that the original mission was to have golf clothes that don't suck, that you could take, I think I read an interview, you said that people's golf apparel resembled an inflatable balloon.
I don't know that I said that.
I think you did. I read it
I've said things like a color bomb went off in the golf shop, things like that.
Yeah, pretty bad, but also baggy. Like I look back at some of the 90s clothes and it's like awful. And so was that just basically the premise when you were cold calling all these companies like, hey, would you be interested in getting nicer golf clothes that you could wear off the course out to dinner?
The basic premise was yes. Can we wear clothes on and off the golf course? We saw 3 main areas that were totally missed, like a massive gap in fit. It was either way too big American fit or it was way too slim Euro. Fabric, it was all 100% poly, 100% cotton. There was nothing in between. And then from a design standpoint, it's stripes and solids, and it's too much color. So I guess there's 4 things. And so there's such a large gap. We went, if we can attack all 4 of those, like we can just drive. In the first season, we probably hit 1 or 2 of 4 and killed it. And so it went, light bulb went off. Wow, if we can attack all 4, we've really got something here. But to simplify for sure, it was just on and off the course. And the idea was we're going to start on and off the course and build this vehicle to eventually be a full lifestyle brand. Yeah. But let's learn in golf because we know that, well, I didn't, but our team knew that area very well. And we knew how underserviced it was.
So for those, for our younger listeners who may be unfamiliar with the idea of pressing digits on a phone to someone you don't know, and just given your sales background, I'm curious, do you think cold calling is still like an underutilized, amazing like resource?
100%. I think everyone falls on the crutch of email, and it's so easy. I get 15, 20, I don't know if you want to call them spam or salespeople emails a day.
Well, those are just from me. I meant from like...
And, well, I'll take it like 3 steps further. So, 1, yes, everyone wants to email. It's so easy for me to say no via email. I can say it as politely as possible. It's great. I can get back to people, and I can also ignore, right? Then phone is a lot tougher to say no if they have something they want to sell. And as a salesperson, I appreciate another salesperson, so I'm going to listen. And then step 3, in person. Like I had someone come to try to sell me solar. I already have solar. I listened to him for 30 minutes. I'm honestly considering it because it actually makes a lot of sense what they pitched.
But you gave him 30 minutes to buy solar and it took me 3 months to get you in the back of the bus? All right.
Well, he had a compelling story, as I said.
Oh, that must be the difference. Okay.
Yeah, so I think getting,
Nighttime in here. That's
when
what
I
it's called.
started with the line, I broke kind of the cardinal rule. You don't do pop-ins. I would do the most unthreatening pop-in just to show them, look, like I'm not a creature from outer space.
Wait, so in golf, in golf stores,
I would go to country clubs.
and that's a big no.
And well, here's what I would do. Here's the trick, right? You have to be creative in business. Otherwise, you're going to get, people are going to go lap you. Now you're going to fall behind. So what I would do is I'd call a country club and say, hey, is David there, the head pro? No, he's not here. Can I get his voicemail? Hey, David, it's Ryan from TravisMathew. I've called you a couple times, haven't gotten you. I'm going to stop by at 10 o'clock on Friday. If that's not good, just give me a call back. Otherwise, I'll see you at 10. And I'd go in at 10 with a catalog. I'd get through the door because I'd say, I got a meeting with David at 10. Okay, go ahead. I go in, he'd be there. He'd kind of be shocked to see me. I said, hey, David, great to meet you. Ryan from TravisMathew. I don't know if you got my message. Yeah, I did. Okay. I'm not here to sell you anything. I want to drop you a catalog off. Here's what we're doing. I can't tell you how many times when I did that and took the non-threatening approach, was ready to walk away, they went, do you have the line with you? Yeah, it's in the back of my car. Can I bring it back
now,
in
when
and
you
show
say,
you?
all right, I would ask about this because
Okay.
other salespeople, when you say I'm not selling anything, is that genuine or was that like in the mind you are selling and he knows you're selling, but it's sort of a diffusing statement?
100% genuine. I came in there to walk out. I plan on spending less than 5 minutes. The idea is he meets me.
Yep.
It's even better sometimes when I leave. He meets me or she meets me. I'm unthreatening. I just want to showcase what we're doing, and then I'm going to walk away. And then they know next time they meet with me, I can walk away again. And so, no, it's 100% genuine. And I think I learned early on, as we said, there's just such a gap in golf. They didn't want to see you, but then once they did, it's like, hey, I probably should look at this. I'm looking for something different.
Cut to several weeks from now is a long line of callers on TravisMathew outside your door. I'm here to see Ryan Ellis. I'm just here to say, drop off your DoorDash, sir. What is that's awesome. It's fun. I've had a lot of people tell me that cold calling, I hear stories all the time of people who cold called and they just got, they found someone who's like, I've just been waiting for someone to call me with this, and they just got a massive deal or something.
Yeah.
But it's just no fun, What is since you've risen to the top as a CEO, looking back now, what do you think makes a great CEO, and what areas do you think that you have grown in, and then what areas do you think you could grow in as a CEO?
I think, there's so many ways to do it. I think that's where you start, right? There's no cookie cutter. Here's the way to be a CEO. I think you have to learn that first. And I've learned that, not the hard way, but I had a lot of self-doubt coming into this position probably 3 or 4 years ago. And I probably could have got in this position sooner. And I know leadership wanted me to be in this position sooner, but I had a lot of self-doubt about, okay, there's 60-70% of the business I feel so good about that I could be best in class. And then there's 30-40% that I'm like, I'm out of my league, right? And
what do you mean? So when you say out of your league, do you mean like didn't have the cognitive capacity, the knowledge set, like the skills?
I didn't believe I had the skills to dive deep in that business to truly understand it, to then direct people on which way we should go. Where I really whiffed on that is you don't need to dive deep into it, right? I'm a logical and smart enough person to dive into the business and figure out logically where they're making mistakes and how to drive them and get the right people in the right positions to make the right decisions. And so for me, I should have went quicker on that. So to get back to your question of, what makes a good CEO, self-awareness, confidence, and I think decision-making, right? We have to make decisive decisions. We have to make them quickly. We have to figure out what's a resource group that we feel comfortable. And then once we make the decision, we're moving forward, right? We're not constantly looking back. Consistent change is very scary for an organization. So by the time you make that decision, you have to pivot at some times, but you want to be very consistent with that. And I think you could be like, for me, I'm sort of a lead by example, work very hard. I've done all the jobs. That's not necessarily the only way to do it. There's a ton of ways you can do it. And I think it starts with, do you have a vision? You have to have a clear vision. And can you sell that to the company, and do they buy in? The biggest thing CEOs and leaders fail in is if they don't get buy-in. As you get down the layers of the company, it's a game of telephone. And by the time it gets to the end, the story's completely different. And you go, how did that happen? Like, I told the exec team this message, and how did it get to the bottom? And they're going in a totally different direction, where your exec team wasn't bought in. The management team wasn't, the directors weren't bought in. Management wasn't bought in. And so you got to, it's that equal balance of getting feedback, but also making the decision that sometimes might be unpopular because it's the best decision for the company.
There's this, and again, from my limited interactions with you, you appear not to be an a-hole. There seems to be this pervasive...
Limited, that's the key.
Yeah, limited exposure here. But, you think about like these CEOs, and there's just sort of this type that's out there, which, like the Steve Jobs-esque, where you just have to be, really quick and really just blunt and me. And I've wondered, do you think there's a certain... No one should be an asshole, but sorry, YouTube, saying that. But is there can you be... on the nicer end, like do you have to be that kind of Jobs-like personality to succeed? I've just wondered sometimes.
No, I actually think that's going extinct.
Really?
And I think you had Matt Leinart on, which is a great interview. And I think, if you ask Matt, do you have to be a Bobby Knight style coach to win? Yeah, you did 50 years ago, because the coach didn't understand how to progress that. And now it becomes more competitive than it is yelling at you, right? You feel like you let somebody down versus, and I talk about that a lot. Is there's the new way to manage, right, is to make it a partnership. And no, I think the Steve Jobs is even if you listen to Elon Musk, first of all, he's a product guy first, right? That's what he does. But you listen to him talk, he doesn't talk like Steve Jobs did. He doesn't seem like he's tough to work for. I think there's a bunch of ways to do it, but I think in this world we live in now, positivity comes first, right? Positivity loaded with practicality. Right? We want to start from a positive end of here's how we could do something. Then we can start poking holes in what are the potential challenges versus the opposite, which is saying no to everything, being so challenging on people. And I think what I've seen is when you manage Steve Jobs style, especially nowadays, people are raised differently. They go into a hole, they go into a corner, they don't perform better, they perform worse. If I can put somebody in a comfortable position, right, where they feel like they can have success, and I can help them through that, they will have success. If I put them against their backs against the wall, more times than not, they're just not going to make it, right? And they need that support.
Going back again to the genesis of the fabled TravisMathew beginnings, what do you have a story of like I love hearing founder stories, or just like when you're there early on, like was there ever a shipping disaster or just some sort of thing that like, it just the thing that comes up in the ordinary process of being a founder where everyone's doing every job and they just like you got to meet an order or some crazy thing that you guys had to deliver on?
Probably two pretty good stories. One, not as big a disaster as that one disaster, but we finally hired a salesperson. We went on a sales trip, had a big account, and at this time we have 5 people in the office, right? So we go on the sales trip. We're thinking this could be a $5,000 or $10,000 account. So we get there and the appointment went insane, like as good as it could go. We ended up booking like $40,000 in orders. So it was out of this world. So my sales guy, great guy, Scott Hedrick, but I can say this because he'll agree. He was a used car salesman, right? And always overpromise, always underdeliver. But he's like a great account opener and such a great personality, great guy. But it's like, slow down. Like, you don't have to go that far. So what he did was he calls Travis and says, hey, you won't believe it, just nailed it. Crushed this appointment. $100,000 order. And I'm sitting next to him going, what are you doing? And he's like, yeah, we just killed it, whatever. And Travis like, you got to be kidding me, whatever. So they hang up and I go, Scott, what are you doing? It was like, $50,000, $60,000 order. That's amazing. 100, that's like more than we've gotten in the past 6 months. Like, so Travis calls him back, says, I just called Kruger. We're all meeting across the street. I shut the office down. We're going to go celebrate. And I'm like, so we go over there and then I have to tell him the truth. Guys, it's still get excited. It's a $50,000 order and you should have seen the room just deflate. And it was a good lesson for our sales guy of like, stop over promising. That would have been so great. But once we set the expectation up here, now it's like, it's a miss. I think the second, that wasn't a disaster. This is more of a disaster. We had a corporate order. And John Kruger, our investor, was intimately involved with it. It was someone who came to him. The guy was a little sort of needy, and you knew that. And so it was about 2 weeks before we were going to see the strike off, which means we were going to see his embroidery, like the corporate embroidery on our polo. And he started freaking out. Oh, this is going to be awful. You guys aren't going to do it right. You're going to screw it up, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, so I had a call with John Kruger, our investor, and I said, John, we have this. Don't worry. Like, we're on the process. We're supposed to get our sample in the next week. I'm waiting on it, so on and so forth. Well, a week later, I found out when we were supposed to get it, we had actually received it 2 weeks earlier, and our team just sat on it. And I'll take the blame for this. I didn't check with them. I just waited for our date, right? And so when we went back to the vendor, we didn't like the embroidery. They said they've already produced it. Because what you do is you get this sort of top of production, and they only sit on it a day or two, and then they hit go because you're holding the whole production line. If they did the whole thing, it was all incorrect. It was like a $400,000 order. I swear to you, this is the only time in my history I called Kruger. I was almost in tears. I was like, this guy's gonna fire me for sure. We're doing like $3 million in sales, and I just lost a $400,000 order. And the customer had already called it. It was gonna be screwed up. It was just dumb luck he had called it, but it did. It got screwed up like that. And I called John, and I think the reason I moved up so well in the company, I was always honest. I never hid behind it. Let's take the first story I told you immediately when I saw him. Guys, this was only 50, 60 grand. It's not 100. And yeah, there's a sting immediately, but then you build trust with people because they go, hey, Ryan's going to tell me immediately. I don't have to play detective. Who did what? Why did they do it? He admits where he was wrong. And I told John, look, it wasn't 100% my fault. We had product development people that sat on that for 2 weeks, but I'm going to die on that sword. And then I'm going to go to the development people. Hey, I died on this sword for you with our owner. Like, this can't happen again. Like, you have to come to me when this happens. But I built that relationship with Travis and with John that they said, I've got a lot of trust in Ryan. And so, that's how I moved up. They know whatever position they're going to put me in, they can trust me in that position.
Now, you wake up at 2 to 4 in the morning most mornings. Is this story the origin of your irregular sleep schedule?
No, it is not. No, I was a night owl forever. I was a night owl until COVID. And then I was taking my kids to school. So I'd get up at 6:30, shower, and I'd get them ready for school, take them to school at 8. And then when COVID hit, they're homeschooled. And then there's no reason for me to stick around because I'm just going to leave at 8 anyway. So I started getting up at 3 and 4. And then I'd wake up at 1:30 and I'd go, when I wake up at 1:30 and then I go back to sleep for an hour, I'm more tired. Why don't you just see if I can just get up and see what happens? So probably for 3 months, I would get up 3 days a week at like 1, sometimes even midnight. And I just get up and shower and I'd go to work. And I'd go, and then I went, oh my God, the efficiency between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. before anyone's up is so good. And I created such a balance in my life and it's not balance for everybody, where you can wake up that early and have this insane routine where by the time you get to 8, your head's clear. And so now when I have meetings, I'm happy, I'm energized, I'm optimistic, and I'm all the traits that I want to be, versus when I'm falling behind constantly, I'm agitated, right? And tougher to deal with. And I'm overwhelmed. And when I'm not overwhelmed, I perform so well. My brain works so well. I'm so creative. And when I'm overwhelmed, it doesn't work that way. So I've found that's the way to catch up. And I've adjusted my body. I have a wind down routine. By 8:30, my phone's down. By 9 o'clock, my kids are down, and I'm asleep 9:02. Just so you know, you've texted me once after 9. You can text me. I'm not going to answer.
2 a.m. Huh?
2 a.m. I will.
All right, so we got to do our hurry up offense here because this is an exciting day because we're actually going to be hanging out with Jay Peterman. After this, which is kind of cool. Both Seinfeld fans here. All right, so lightning round. Give us the most unliner responses ever. Sorry, Matt. That was not my joke. It was Ryan's joke. Ryan will own up to that, just like you said.
Gotta be quick. A little long-winded.
Right. Couple questions here. One. So boiling down, what would you tell yourself? What do you wish you knew 10 years ago? What would you go back and tell?
Well, I mean, I wish I knew the brand would do this much volume. I'd ask for a lot more money.
All right, good. But also, like, what do you want to tell yourself? Be like, dude, like.
I should have had more confidence in my ability, and I should have, on one hand, I feel like it served me right because I'm in the position I'm at, but I probably could have got there quicker, and I probably could have moved the company along quicker in terms of, right now we've got this hyper growth because we probably could have grown more 3 or 4 years back, and we were doing it a little slower, and we're one of the few companies now, 14 years in business, and so I would say I would have had more confidence early in some of the things that I'm probably not as good at, and knowing that I could hire the right people and I'm logical and smart enough to figure that out.
And for those who feel stuck, bored in their career, maybe just starting, whatever it is, they're not content with where they're at. What encouragement do you have for them as someone who's now sort of reaching a different level of their career and been from the bottom? What encouragement do you have for them?
I'll use a Kruger line. Look in the mirror. That's a big line, and you can say it about a ton of things. If you're bored in your job, you're not doing it right. I've never been bored in a job I've had ever. And sometimes that's my resistance to move up because I feel like I can do so much more, because every job you have, there's the defined job responsibilities, and then there's so much more. And you can make so much more out of your job. So if you're bored, what are the people next to you doing? How do you learn more about that? How do you get to the next step in your career? You shouldn't be bored. If you're bored, you have the wrong manager, or you're just not doing it right. I don't think you're doing it right because there's so much to learn. Nobody's an expert at their craft, right? There's a lot of people that are really good, but they're not experts. So there's always more time you can put in to get the most out of your job.
There's a phrase painted on your wall. When is what going to happen? What is the origin of that?
That's another Krugerism. Wow, he's really coming up in this thing. He's going to be very excited.
That's right.
Yeah, he taught us, there's so much wasted time out there, right? We have meetings, we talk about things. What's really happening with it, right? So we put a date on everything. Let's say we have a meeting. We want a clear-cut agenda to start that meeting, right? Then we want goals for the meeting. What do we want to accomplish out of the meeting, right? Then we want a leader of the meeting. As we go through the meeting, we stay on task. When we're done, action items with dates. Everyone in our company builds priorities. The entire company, top 5 priority projects, top 5 priorities for the week, right? So we can track everything. When is what going to happen? We're going to separate ourselves by getting stuff done, right? And then we're also going to separate ourselves by prioritizing and realizing you can't get everything done. So we have to work together on what actually can get done and when can it get done. And so that's when is what going to happen is a philosophy we'll live by forever. And one of the best things Kruger taught us.
What is all right? Last couple rapid questions. What I love asking this. Does something stand out as one of the worst interviews a person ever had with y'all?
I have 2. I'll be very quick with them. The first one was like 4 levels down from me, so kind of rare that I would even interview, but it was an important position. And so usually when that happens, they're like on it, right? It's like CEO's calling, I better be on it.
Yeah.
So I can't get a hold of her for 15 minutes, and now I got in 20 minutes I got to go. So I finally get a hold of her 15 minutes. Answers the phone. Yeah. I go, hello, it's Ryan Ellis, CEO of TravisMathew. We have an interview, right? Oh, yeah, I think we do. I go, okay. She goes, I'm working right now. And I said, okay, well, our interview time was at this time. Hold on, let me take you outside. And I'm already like, okay, this is over, right? So she takes me outside and she's like, yeah, I'm working on this project. And so I said, is this not a good time for you? And she goes, actually, it's not. I go, no problem. We'll schedule it later. And that was it. And I told the hiring manager, okay, let's move on from that one. The other one was the best and worst interview I've ever had. It was the best interview. It was an hour interview, best I've ever had. So good that I was like, something's wrong here. And so I said, hey, do you want to go out to dinner and grab a drink after? Because it was for a senior position. And he said, yeah, sure. So we went out to dinner, grabbed a drink. I don't remember. And I was thinking, this guy's got to be full of it because he can't be that good at all that stuff, right? He should have my job at the end of the day. He should.
Do you want my job?
I felt like a lot less smart after I talked to him. And sure enough, we went to dinner and he was so full of it. It was one of those things where some people, if they know, only know a little, they can drive you and make you feel like they know a lot. I started diving into subjects I knew a lot about, and then he tried to act like the expert, and then I kept going over the top, and you learned really quickly he didn't know a lot about these things. He knew a little, and he was one of those guys that could just talk his way through it, and honestly avoided disaster on that one.
I know the type. Now we have, for our last question here, we consulted some Ryan Ellis experts here.
No.
So just two quick questions for you.
Okay. This is scary.
There's a rumor floating around that you have been known by the golf nickname The Whipper.
This is accurate. Actually, I'm not embarrassed by this.
Can you explain this name and why you have it?
Yes. So I have I'll call it a cut. You can call it a fade. High cut fade, if you want to call it. It's not my haircut. It's how I hit the ball. I have a very bad over-the-top slice. I hadn't started playing golf until probably 26, right when I started at TravisMathew. And so all the bad habits from whatever I did and whatever sports I was in just came into play. And if I play my whipper, I can hit it nice 220 left or right. And it leaves me about 200 out on every hole. And I play okay. I could play bogey golf. And when I try to hit it straight and think I've fixed the whipper, that's when we start shooting in the hundreds, and it gets super, super ugly. But yeah, it's about as ugly a shot as you'll see, but it makes for a mean high handicap in tournaments because I hit it straight. I mean, when I say straight, it goes in the fairway. It's definitely not straight.
The other question comes from the same individual who may or may not have some sort of had financial interest in the company at one point. There's a question that whether TravisMathew was in violation of SEC law in committing fraud because the CEO took the company from a golf brand to a lifestyle brand. And the question is whether that was done to avoid having a CEO who's not great at golf be head of a golf company to avoid committing fraud.
I don't believe that's true. I believe you're talking about a certain owner. Am I right?
And this person chooses to remain anonymous, but they're just curious if that's. Did you move TravisMathew into lifestyle so that you could be CEO and not be president of a golf company.
You know, once you like the Cloud hoodie, I thought, you know what, lifestyle's the way to go. I'm moving the company direction based on Ryan Bethea's thoughts on Cloud, which is totally lifestyle. So that's where we're going.
That's awesome. And folks, tune in next week when Ryan pronounces my last name correctly.
How do you say it?
Bethea.
Oh,
but you knew that from all the episodes you listened to. Obviously. I mean, you got that.
No one ever said your name, I feel like.
I know, that's right. No, say my name.
Bethea,
well, our camping trip has... we actually have a really exciting... This is really cool. There are not many days when you get to meet with a CEO of an amazing company, which I'm a huge fan of and clearly bought and paid for. And we get to meet with a Seinfeld star afterwards, so that's cool. Any parting words for the dozens of people listening around the world?
I'll just give... I don't have anything funny to say, so let me just preface
There's only one funny Ryan here.
It's true. You know, I think if we're talking about young entrepreneurs out there, I think what I'm seeing right now is, you know, what's interesting, even if you think about in classrooms and things like that, you know, if a child, if a teacher says a child's doing something wrong, now the parent is mad at the teacher, right? And so it's teaching the kids to sort of, everyone in the world has to bend around you, right? And I think part of my success was I bent around everybody else, right? Whether I'm working for them or they're working for me. And I think that's a lesson for people to learn out there. To have success right now, you know, you can let the world bend around you, and some people do that and have success, but I think it's a true advantage and a leg ahead of the competition if you can look at people that work above you and below you and alongside you and go, how do they like to work? How can I work around what they want? How do I create these relationships within a company where people like me? They want to work with me, and they're actively helping me get promoted. And I think I did that throughout my career, and I think the few spots that I stumbled a little bit, I probably wasn't good at that and had to reset and go, all right, how do I build great relationships with all these people? And that's what I would leave them with is like, you know, young people need to find a better way to work around other people and not make everyone work around them. To do that, they're going to have a lot quicker success.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Ryan. And for those who took his wisdom of cold calling to heart, we will be posting his personal cell number on YouTube for all of you. So get ready. You'll know when to reach him between the hours of 3 and 5 in the morning. So anyways, Ryan, thanks for camping with us, man.
Thank you, Ryan.
If you're like me, you wake up every morning, stare in the mirror, and ask yourself, could I be any cooler? Well, the answer is yes. Unless you're sleeping on the Chili Sleep Uller sleep system, you're probably sleeping hot, hot, hot. And that, as we say, is not cool. The Chili Sleep Uller Sleep System hydro-powered temperature-controlled mattress topper keeps your body at optimal temperature so you don't exit REM sleep a second too early. To radically, completely, and utterly change your life for the better, head on over to chilisleep.com/went camping and get a special offer just for our Went Camping listeners. That's chilisleep.com/went camping. Trust me, you're not going to want to sleep on this offer. Thanks for joining us, folks. If you want to help us out, and we're confident you do, go ahead and hit that subscribe button here on our YouTube channel. And if you ever feel like just listening to these, you can check us out on all major podcast streaming platforms by just searching for I Went Camping With. And there, you should also subscribe. Thanks again, folks.